Well, hey, Joseph Rios is with us today, and Rikisha, his wife, are pastors at Generaciones, which is a worship community of Chapelwood. For people who don't know, Chapelwood is a community of communities. We have our main sanctuary community that's been going since 1949. That's our oldest original church, right? That planted, but 26 years ago, we started Mercy Street on Saturday night. Matt Russell actually started that. And it's become its own community within our community. They have their own pastors, their own staff, their own charism, their own don that they gift to the community. People in recovery, people come out of prison, people who've just been harmed by church or burned by church. You know, we have the Center for Christian Spirituality, does contemplative worship. So we have a whole contemplative community. In previous iterations, we've had Holy Family in East Downtown. We've had, that's now an Episcopalian church. We are the only Methodist church that has birthed an Episcopalian congregation. And Upper Room, which was a part of us for a long time. And we've had others. We now have another campus with Fairhaven, which is a community, and Generaciones, which meets there. So why don't you begin by telling, because there's folks who are part of Chapelwood who listen to this, and there are people all over that don't know anything about Chapelwood. So we're going to talk about some Chapelwood stuff, but I want to talk about today doing ministry in Latino community, a Hispanic ministry, especially in Houston. We're going to talk about all of that, but tell people a little bit about your experience, and then we'll talk about the history of it. But what goes on at Generaciones? What is Generaciones? How do you describe it to people and what y'all are doing?
Well, first of all, I tell you, you mentioned community of communities, and that was one of the things that drew me to Chapelwood. When I saw that phrase, I was like, wow, I don't know what that means really, but it sounds like it means something good. And ever since I've come here, it's been great to be able to, I come from kind of a Pentecostal charismatic background. And so coming into Chapelwood has been just a great experience where I felt like I can breathe in my own skin and be who God's called me to be and reach the Latino population. Generaciones is a Hispanic, Spanish-speaking community that reaches the Hispanic community here in Houston. And we've got people from all spectrums. We've got the down and outers, and we've got the up and outers. It's a beautiful community, a very warm community, very, very relational. We do this thing. It's because my dad told me growing up that you needed 21 hugs to be healthy every day. And so we do this thing during our service where I tell everybody, I want you to hug 5 people. And so everybody's just accustomed to, so if you ever come to our community or if you ever come to visit one of our worship, don't feel like anybody's flirting with you or anything like that. That's a part of the culture. And of course, in Venezuelan cultures and Colombian cultures, they'll kiss you on the cheek. So don't get scared of that either. They're just being, loving and cordial.
Just being normal.
They're just being normal. That's all they're. But it's an exciting to see the work that God is doing in Generaciones, in collaboration with Chapelwood. I think that the growth that we've experienced has been because somehow we've figured something out to do something together. Yeah. As a church family. It's
interesting, the backstory. I would say Chapelwood has tried for many, many, many years. So people who don't know, we're on the west side of Houston, Texas, south of I-10, in an area that's called the Villages. It's a very wealthy area of Houston. It's kind of self-governed, protected, insulated, very insulated. It's like a very fancy, glorified HOA. But just north of I-10, which is a stone's throw from us, right, is Spring Branch. And so in the same school district, Spring Branch ISD, independent school district, you've got the south of I-10, the schools that are very wealthy, tend to be very white, right? And then north of I-10, lower socioeconomic spectrum, very much Latino community. So when you go north of so it's like, this is our neighborhood. This is our community we share together. Spring Branch Independent School District has some of the wealthiest families in the state of Texas and some of the poorest families in the state of Texas. Some of the whitest families in the state of Texas and some of the brownest families in the state. All going to the same school district.
Yeah.
And it's been interesting politically with the school district and all the kind of the dynamics going on. We're not going to get into that. But what I say is that's our mission field. It's our backyard. I mean, that's our front yard.
Yeah.
And we look at that and we say, how are we going to be in mission and ministry to the people who are our neighbors, you know? And we started years ago, even before I came in 2014, they started to try to figure out how are we going to do Hispanic ministry. So they formed a committee of white people to go up into Spring Branch and say, how can we start a mission or a ministry to reach the children?
Yeah.
Hispanic families' children. So it's going to be a children's kind of ministry thing. And it started, and then they realized real quick, well, you can't just minister to the kids, you got to minister to the families. I mean, the parents are coming going, oh, what are we going to do? Yeah. And so it kind of started into a church, but it never was set out to be a church. And then we've gone through different iterations of highs and lows and goods and bad. And when we merged with the campus on Gessner Road with Fairhaven, we inherited a small little group. But you and I and Luis Palomo had talks in years past, and you had this church that was kind of hopping around, right? You were in a school, or you were in...
We started at Spring Branch Middle School.
Yes, Spring Branch. Did you meet at like a Korean Baptist church? Or?
Yeah, we did there. Then we moved to Spring Spirit for a couple of weeks. We used their little... Then we moved to the YMCA over on Clay Road. And then from there, we moved to the Korean church. And it's a funny story. We're at the Korean church.
This is Houston. This is great Houston.
We're at the Korean church, and we're meeting in their cafeteria. And they cook something called kimchi.
Oh, yeah.
That,
love kimchi.
Man, gets up in your grill.
Oh, yeah.
And in one of those services, there was a lady from our church that she was coming that Sunday to let me know that was her last Sunday because she couldn't handle the smell anymore. And that was the Sunday that Andy Knoll was there, and we were getting ready to announce that we were moving to Chapelwood. And so her story, she's still with us. But I remember we were like, God, please rescue us from this Korean, we love these Koreans, but this kimchi is just killing us. And so I met Luis, he introduced me to you, and I just remembered meeting you and feeling a sense of like, we're supposed to do something together. Mm-hmm. You know, we're supposed to reach the Latino community together, and I didn't know how it looked like, but it's
so it sort of became, it was literally a merger of you coming in and bringing your folks and sort of combining with the community that was here. But some of it's been rebooted. There are some people from the original sort of merger of the two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you're averaging now what, 290?
About 290, yeah, between 290 300 every weekend. And
I mean, you think about 290 people in worship. I mean, that's amazing. If you think about it, it's amazing. And people come from not just Spring Branch.
No, we get people from Sugarland. We get people from Katy. We get people from all over Houston.
Now, this is an interesting conversation that we've been having lately as we talk about next steps for Generaciones and able to grow and continue to reach even more people for Christ. Is when you think about, talk a little bit about, you and I and Rakisha were talking about like the immigrant experience, right? Mm-hmm. And particularly in Houston, Latino Hispanic experience of people who are here from all over different places and finding a sense of identity and community. You know, I was using the analogy that in the early days of expansion west in America, people needed community, they needed to be connected. Yeah. And so churches grew like crazy. Methodist Church, Baptist Church, they exploded. There was this huge evangelical rise. Now, you know, we're kind of fat and happy and comfortable, and we're kind of more fired up about politics than we are about faith. And so there's just not that lingering draw. But within the Latino community, Hispanic community, you have people that are now in the same sort of expansion mentality, needing to connect in community, maybe, you know, feeling as if they live in a different space and place. Talk about that a little bit, that you're finding that experience.
Well, I think that exact thing that happened at the birth of the Methodist Church and all that stuff, I think people are finding that here now. You know, when people are coming from other countries, they many times leave their families, their moms, their dads. And so when they come here, they feel alone. and they don't know the system. They don't know how the United States works. They're not sure whether to trust a gringo or to fear a gringo, And so what we have done is focused on really giving people a place where they can build community, where they can find relationships. And we've had people say, man, I felt so alone until I started coming to church here. It says, now I feel like I have a family. I feel covered. I feel like this is my crew. This is my tribe. Yeah. And so that's been our focus. We've talked about the difference between an attractional church and the difference between a missional church. And I think we're a combination of all that. But if I could say something that we really are, is we're a relational community. We're strong. We do lunches with people. We do dinner. We do everything around food. Yeah. Something about
so
food.
Do I. I can't judge.
Yeah, when people call me, they says, they use the term pastor in our community a lot. Pastor, can you come and counsel me? I said, well, what are you cooking? How do we organize this around a tamale or something? Yeah. And they're like, oh yes, and of course they'll feed the socks off of you. So that's
you've done pretty well though to get fed so much. You're staying in good shape.
Well, I'm trying to run the race.
I know it's hard.
But that has been the experience for a lot of immigrant people. Some people have a number of people have a legal status, or they're in the process of getting their legal status, or in the process of moving from asylum to residency. And then we do have a community of people who are undocumented and just hardworking people that love God, people that give, people that honor, people that pledge. And they're seeing God work in their lives in that limited kind of a circumstance.
Yeah. That thing's become very politicized, and I don't really care to get into the politics. What I think is important for us as a church is you're supposed to love your neighbor, and the neighbor is the one who's close to you. The neighbor is the one in your neighborhood, in your community. Yeah. And the Word made flesh, Jesus, Word became flesh, and as Eugene Peterson says in his translation, the Word became flesh and moved into the neighborhood. And so for us, West Houston is a huge place, but for us, this area of West Houston has been a place this is our sphere of influence. This is where we're called to make a difference. And there's a huge Hispanic population. And a block or two a couple of blocks up from our campus on Gessner Road has become, I think you and Paul Myler, who's our pastor of Fairhaven on the Gessner campus, has become a huge drop-off point. Yeah. For people who have been shuttled across the border.
Yeah,
right?
For coyotes.
So, yeah. And, our job is, I'm not a politician.
Right.
My job is there's someone in front of us who's hungry. We need to make sure they have food to eat. Someone in front of us who's cold. We need to make sure they got a place to be warm. Yeah. Someone in front of us needs shelter. We got to make sure we find out a place to get them sheltered. To be faithful to that. That's what I think. When you say, what would Jesus do? That's what Jesus would do.
And that's what
all the other stuff has to get sorted out by someone else.
Right.
That's not our job.
That's not our job.
Our job is is the spiritual life, and caring for people and loving people as Jesus calls us to love people. All that political, law enforcement stuff, has to be handled by those people. Yeah. And so the reality is we are in a mission field where it's present in front of us. Yeah. There are a lot of people in this country, they hadn't seen a brown person their whole life. Yeah. Because they might live in a place where there are no Hispanic people. I find it hard to believe where that would be nowadays. But it's especially in South Texas and Houston, it's a huge part of our community. And I just love that people think within a Spanish church or a Hispanic church that they're all from one country. People always say, they're all Mexicans, right? Talk about that.
I'm Puerto Rican.
Yeah, I know.
And I've got some Dominican as well. And I remember growing up, I went to a white Christian Pentecostal school. And I remember there was 10% Latino. And I remember they would call me burrito. They would call me Frito pie. They would call me wetback. And then
when was this?
This was back in the 80s.
Oh,
when I grew up,
they used to do that stuff. And Jeff, you're too young for that.
I remember they used to call me, and then I would start making light of it. And then we made it real spirit. Yeah, I'm a wetback because I got baptized in water. You redeemed
it. You took the insult and made it. Yeah, that's like a Dao Chi move. That's great.
The funny thing is many of those people are my dear friends today, lifelong friends. But yeah, we grew up, and everybody thought.
I bet you they're not calling you that today.
Oh no, they're best friends, But everybody was considered a Mexican, and they were like, oh, there come them Mexicans, and I'm like, well, I'm Puerto Rican, and I and people were like, oh, okay, yeah, I didn't know what is that,
It's so funny to me. It's like Puerto Ricans are Americans, right?
Right.
It's like people are like.
But yeah, that's the experience. But now, I mean, there's so many people. We have probably 16 Latino nationalities within our community, like from Venezuela.
What would probably be the largest component of the largest demographic?
Oh, I would say it would be right now for us. It would be between Colombian, Venezuelan, and Mexican.
Interesting.
I would say those are the three largest.
So you've got North Central America, and then you've got South America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, we have Cubans. We have a Cuban who leads our worship. We have Nicaraguans. We have Guatemalans. We have Hondurans. And all of them have their own foods. It's not all Mexican food. Just for everybody to know.
Yeah, pupusas.
Yeah, pupusas from El Salvador.
El Salvador.
Honduras has a taco they call a baleada.
Baleada.
Yes, it's not. Don't say taco because that'll be offensive. It's a baleada.
Baleada.
Yeah, and so it's a neat experience when we do like International Sundays. Everybody brings a different item, and it's just.
And we did. I've shared the story before about years ago. On the Christmas Eve, the Esperanza, the branch, one of the kind of the previous congregation, they would do tamales, which is a very popular Christmas time, right? So they would gather on Christmas Eve, make tamales, and then everybody brought their own ingredients, and a fight broke out. Not literal fight, but like an argument broke out because
it got tense.
Because what happens is everybody brings their unique ingredients, like what they put, raisins or beef or chicken or whatever inside, but they couldn't agree on the masa. So the masa is just like, you would think that'd be the easiest part. I mean, that's just the corn, like the cornbread that you put and you wrap it up, right? Well, apparently the masa is done different a little bit in every.
Absolutely.
And so they thought the masa was like, oh, that's easy. You don't have to worry about that.
No.
We'll just appreciate the differences of the fillings. Yeah. And like they couldn't get past the masa. So from there on, they were like, okay, we'll provide the masa. You just bring the fillings.
Yeah. Little things like that seem so insignificant, but in each culture, it's valuable or it's different or it's distinct.
Yeah. So one of the things you and I have talked a lot about, and I think for, so we're part of United Methodist denomination. You have kind of gone along a journey with us, kind of learning. I mean, I know what people don't understand is Pentecostalism and charismatic movement of Pentecostalism really kind of comes out of a Wesleyan DNA.
Absolutely.
If you do John Wesley's theology, he believes in sanctifying grace. And sanctifying grace leads to holiness of heart and life. Now, he believed that happens slowly over time in your life, and by the time you actually achieved Christian perfection was probably towards your deathbed. And it didn't mean you never made a mistake or you never did anything wrong. It just meant that you were perfected in love, perfected in your motivations of love. And as that was taught, there were some folks that said, well, I want to be sanctified now.
Right.
Like immediately. So you got your Phoebe Palmer and you got all this historic thing. So it was like this second sort of filling of the Spirit. So we Methodists have always had this interesting interaction that we know we're family, but sometimes, man, Pentecostalism scares like Methodists. What I think is interesting about that as it relates to doing ministry with Hispanics is, and I want you to talk about this a little bit for people that don't understand, is that for Latinos, there's Catholicism, and a lot have come out of Catholicism. Yeah. And then there's an evangelicalism, which is really manifest mostly in the charismatic expression, Pentecostalism. Mainline churches like Presbyterians, Methodists, Episcopalians, all that kind of stuff, they don't really do Hispanic ministry well. And from some of the stuff I've heard and read, it's like, you're either Catholic or you got to be really different than Catholic.
Yeah.
For your folks who resonate with, in the Pentecostal experience, I mean, I would imagine they all have experience or knowledge of of Catholicism.
A large portion of them, yeah.
And what are their thoughts on that versus like this expression of how they do church, and how does that work? Because I don't think people understand that. You know, I hate to say it, but, you know, white folks can go to Catholic Mass with their wife on Saturday, and then they can go to the Baptist church on Tuesday, and then they can go to Christmas Eve at the Methodist church. And there's some things that they like and don't like, but they don't think in their mind like, it is what it is.
Well, I think I think the Catholic do a good job of instilling a sense of reverence for, you know, the priest, the church, those kind of things. I think when people have fully, you know, taken that in, and they come to a Pentecostal church, or they come to a charismatic church, we focus more on having an encounter with God, you know, like experiencing God, experiencing His presence. And then so we try to mix a little bit of the, you know, that the experience of taking in the Lord's Supper, you know, as we do once a month. But our focus is largely on people having an experience with God, experiencing His presence. And you'll find a lot of people that come in and say, man, I felt God. I felt His presence. Or I felt like, I don't know, but I felt like the preacher was talking directly to me, you know, type of deal. And of course, we pray for that. We ask God for that. Lord, you know, speak to every person. Let every heart have an encounter. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what happens with when people come from Catholicism, which we have a lot of people. You know, they feel like, man, I feel something here, you know, and I like what I feel, and I want more of this. And so, and then we connect people in relationship with others. We encourage people to read the Bible, to study the Bible. And so I think the Catholicism is a good, it's like a good step for people from our experience, because Catholics that come into our community, they make amazing Christians. Like, they make some of the best.
Well,
like,
just to be clear, Catholics are Christians.
I mean,
but sorry. I know what you're saying. They come
forgive
in.
Forgive my language.
No, I understand. But I think what you're saying is, I mean, they're Christians, their framework, but when they come in, man, they just find something that gets unlocked in them that maybe they didn't have the key to, or they didn't understand how to unlock it in some way. And so it's a whole. I guess you would say it's almost like a whole new spiritual experience for them. I mean, they kind of move into a new phase of their development, or spiritual growth, if you will. And
mind you, there is a charismatic movement in the Catholic Church, you know, and I think those movements are growing. Mm-hmm. You know, like we have a family of 10 people that they were born and raised Catholic. They've been coming to our community for 7-8 years. Mm-hmm. They drive every Sunday. You know, they serve, they volunteer, and they pass 1,000 churches to get here. And they just, for me, that speaks to the reverence, you know, that the devotion that Catholics have, that they come in and they're like, man, I'm in, I love this. And so we have had great experience with Catholics coming in, and we don't shame Catholics. We don't feel like they're any less than us. You know, we just have a different expression of what. Just God's so you know, everybody was a Catholic at one point. For sure. In the past, we all started out as Catholics. Yeah. So we love Catholics. Yeah, I do too. When we talk about doing ministry, like one of the things we went through in our staff worship was a book on United Methodist beliefs. Mm. And as you were listening to that, I know going to a Pentecostal seminary, you know theology, but what resonated with you in your experience as, you know, as a part of Chapelwood, United Methodist, but going through that book on United Methodist beliefs, what were the things that resonated with you that were like, wow, this is already who we are, or this is something I connect to, or this is something that was either new to me or surprising? I think the approach to scriptures, you know, Methodists approach scriptures. I want to say this, that we all kind of arrive at a similar place, but the approach that Methodists use to get there, for me, it's refreshing. You know, for me, it's encouraging. It's not like I do come from the expectation that you need to be holy today. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, you got the Spirit, so what's wrong with you? How come you haven't, you know? And those people that thought that they did arrive, they're very blind to the things that happen when nobody else is looking. And so for me, that progressive, just, you know, that journey,
the sanctification, the process of sanctification.
That process.
Methodists, we Methodists would say, man, I love the idea of, the concept of they call it instant sanctification, right? But the reality is, even people who believe in instant sanctification or preach it or proclaim it, they're not really instantly sanctified.
Oh, no, not at all.
Because like you said, it's like that just leads to too much like my own poop don't stink, right? But everybody else is wrong. And Jesus had a big issue with self-righteousness. And so that whole concept kind of leads me a little bit to sort of saying, it is a journey. I think it's more important to see the reality through a lens of humility is that, man, I'm going to fail at some point every day.
Yeah.
But how am I taking the next step to die a little of that, live to a little more to Christ, die to a little bit of those desires, live to something better every day. So that journey is a slow kind of rise. Yes. And I think even for people who have this instant sanctification mentality, there's still, if they're intentional about it, it still really is a slow rise.
Oh, yeah.
It's as you're moving closer and closer to Christ and becoming more like Christ in your life. But what's been the most exciting thing you've seen happen lately?
Man, there's a girl, I don't want to say her name, but she's in her 30s in our community. She's a part of a halfway house down the street from the campus there on Gessner. Mm-hmm. And she has come in the last 2 months. She was wearing a monitor on her ankle, and she just dove in. She found out about us through our bike giveaway. Mm-hmm. And anyways, she came last Sunday, and she came up to me. She says, "Pastor, I'm so grateful for this church. I had another, I think she said 3 months left with my monitor. And, but I've just been praying, I've been seeking God, and, and my supervisors are seeing some changes in me. And they just told me this week that I'm getting my monitor taken off this week." And for me, it just blessed me to see that gleam of hope in her eyes, like, man, I can do something. I can grow, and it seems so small but for her, it's massive.
Oh yeah.
And so when I see those kind of changes, those things that people are just waking up and saying, man, I can live a better life in Christ. I can grow. I don't have to stay where I'm at. For me, those are the exciting things. That's something that's exciting that's taken place. To see marriages come together, get healed in our community. Mm-hmm. When people were at their throats, people were calling me for divorce. And to see them come together, to see them learn how to love each other, to see people who never gave, who didn't believe in giving, mm-hmm. all of a sudden come in, and they're seeing the testimonies of other people give, and they're starting to give and be a part and serve. Those things are exciting to me.
One of the things that's interesting about what you've done with Generaciones is, for us for forever, whenever we do Hispanic ministry, and I read, when you look up what are the challenges facing Hispanic ministry or Hispanic churches, and one of the big thing is resources. Mm-hmm. And whenever we tried to do it before, we had to view it as a missional outreach, because there was never, I don't know how I can't explain it, but there was never a sense where they committed to and invested in their own community, whether mm-hmm. it was lack of resources or the teaching, or I don't know. But since you've been here, for you, teaching tithing and teaching stewardship, and your community gives toward the work of the community. The Generaciones gives to the work in the ministry they do. It's pretty much for all intents and purposes, it's almost pretty much self-sustaining, mm-hmm. which is kind of amazing. I don't think that happens a lot with Hispanic ministries or Hispanic churches that are started by mainline churches as they plant, or even conferences when they start and plant churches. They usually have to continue to invest resources in them to get them to work. What's the magic secret sauce on all that?
Well, for number one, I'm a giver. I'm a firm believer in honoring God. So I think you reproduce what you are, right? That's number one. Number two, I have really pushed the narrative that, Chapelwood is it's It's the hand of God that's sowing the seed into our community. And we cannot receive this seed and just continue to just consume seed. We need to reproduce that seed so that others can hear the gospel. We need to take what God has given to us and saying, how do we multiply what God has given to us so that others can hear? And so that's been our message. Hey, come in. And then stewardship. Stewardship it doesn't matter if you're poor or wealthy. Stewardship is a subject for everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to know how to, if you've got $10 or $10 million, everybody's got to learn how to manage that in a God-honoring way. We just did a financial peace seminar. Mm-hmm. And there was a couple who had they'd been a part of our community for 5 years, never given consistently. And when they started realizing that they could cut this and cut that, and they can do without this, and they redid their budget, they committed to an amazing pledge, for our giving. And they came a couple Sundays ago and they're like, we're so excited. We didn't realize that we could redo our finances and organize ourselves to honor God and take care of our family and do everything that we need to do. And so I think that, lack of education, a lack of knowledge has a big thing to do with it. And if we can educate people and we can show them what the scripture says, the benefits of good stewardship, then people buy in. So let's kind of wind this down, but we've been really prayerfully discerning kind of next steps. I mean, the Generaciones community within Chapelwood has grown. I think it's fair to say he's kind of up against the walls now. It's kind of growing, and we've gone through some strategic discernment and some visioning and some prayer, and we kind of feel like maybe it's time for Generaciones to launch, to give. And we're not going to talk about specifics of that, but talk about the vision that you have for Generaciones launching, and what does that mean? What does that look like, and why is that important to grow this thing? I mean, why is that? Because for me, I mean, like, I look at what's going on in Chapelwood. We are a great missional church. There are new people who are joining, but man, when you look at the fiery growth, if you will, like the explosive growth of evangelism, it's really happening in the Generaciones community. From how we're observing what's going on, there's a lot of new people coming through. We just got to work on making sure we keep those people. Yeah.
We've talked a lot about structures, and which is not something that maybe has been a part of the church before, but we're working on getting all those things lined up, because that's going to then be the foundation for you, not only connected more closely to us, connected more closely to our denomination. I think this is an opportunity to be a learning lab that we can translate in other places to plant other campuses, or even new United Methodist churches that have a unique call to reach Latinos, not just in Houston, but all over the place. Because we haven't really done a good job with Hispanic ministry in United Methodist Church.
Well, I think that the Latino community it's one of the fastest growing communities in the U.S. And I don't know, I think we're like 40 or 50% here in our community.
In Houston, it's almost, it's a 40, at least 40%.
And a lot of unchurched Latinos. Mm-hmm. And so I think that the genius behind our relationship with Chapelwood is very structured oriented, very systems oriented. And I don't come from that. Mm-hmm. I come from, let's have a move of God, and God will sort it all out.
I know we've had to go back and forth on some of that before.
And I felt like I have been mentored by Chapelwood, mm-hmm. By you, by the leadership team here. There's been times where y'all slapped me upside the head and say, we need to get this right. There's been times y'all just loved me. There's been times where I walked in the room with a big head and I thought I was doing good, and y'all were like, you're not doing so good. And then there was times where I walked in just like sobbing, and you're like, oh, you're doing great. And so for me, it's just been a great experience of affirmation, of correction, of growing. And I think that's probably one of the secret sauces of our relationship, that and we're able to build off that. So we feel like there's a huge need for the city. And, when I met you, my original feeling was, this is going to be something for the city. I didn't know when or how or what, but I sensed that. And now when we're talking about launching, I think that we're going to be able to impact the city in a great way, the Latino population of Houston. I think Chapelwood is going to be able to get their dirty fingernails, as we call it, into the city in a greater way, through Generaciones. And I'm excited to work with UMC, with United Methodist Church on just igniting whatever we can do to ignite an encouragement for the Latino population, which is huge. And we need to do it.
Yeah. And just to be clear, we're using this language. You're already United Methodist.
Amen. Gloria a Dios.
You've been United Methodist because you're a part of Chapelwood as a worship community. But I do recognize and understand that you've come out of a different tradition, and we've sort of looked at how do we honor that, because as a United Methodist, one of the things that we've said real big in the past few years is, because you've been walking through this with us, is like there's room at the table for everyone, yes. Right? There's room at the table for our LGBTQ brothers and sisters, and there's room at the table for our Pentecostal,
wild
brothers and sisters. I mean, so if we say we're going to be a denomination that's going to be diverse, and if we say we're going to be a denomination where everyone's welcome at the table, well, that either means everyone or it doesn't mean everyone.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And I think, most United Methodists, no matter how conservative they are, man, Pentecostalism kind of like makes them a little nervous. We might raise our hand in a worship song. Well, this is about as far as we go, right? That's about as far as we go.
I remember you told me one time, he's like, Joseph, we want you to come over and teach us how to raise our hands.
Yeah, that's right.
But I'm excited about this opportunity, to do this with Chapelwood. This has been my family. Chapelwood covered me. When I was out, I had left my old denomination because I just felt like God wanted to do something different with me. And I was just bouncing around on my own. And I felt like when I came to Chapelwood, I felt like Chapelwood clothed me. I felt like Chapelwood covered me and gave me a place to be, to belong, to be who I am. I never felt like Chapelwood was expecting me to change, but at the same time, give me some high accountability.
Yeah.
And which I think it's been the secret sauce to all this, is, okay, Joseph, what is your vision? All right, we're going to hold you accountable to that vision, and we're not going to make you into cookie cutter, or whatever we want you to be, but we're just going to hold you accountable for what God has put in your heart.
Theologically, we align. I mean, we have, there's some minor differences here and there in how we worship or some things like that. But I mean, that happens if you go to a United Methodist Church from the West Coast to the East Coast to the North to the South. Oh. When you go in, there's going to be, like the way we do Chapelwood, like, for example, we're very different. Like you pray for people, right? Mm-hmm. You gather around. I remember on Saturday, you were going to meet with a guy and it's like, oh, we're meeting with somebody, we're going to pray for him. Like Sunday mornings when we do communion and people come to the altar, they can hold their hands out and the pastors come and they kneel and we pray for people at the altar.
Yeah.
And we pray for people in the hallway. I mean, that's just what we do at Chapelwood. We do that at Mercy Street. We do that everywhere. So to think that somehow like praying for people at the end of the service is like, that's what we do.
Do they fall down when y'all pray for them?
They're already kneeling.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. They don't fall.
You don't have slain in the spirit?
No. We don't do that.
I've been slain in the spirit before.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Really? What?
Yeah, it was years ago. It was when I left high school. The church I grew up in was a very unique United Methodist church, and it had some charismatic flair to it. I mean, people would raise their hand, but it was almost like the old South, like glory, hallelujah. It's kind of like that kind of. And when I went to college, there were two United Methodist churches in Statesboro, Georgia, at Georgia Southern, and when I walked into them, they were both like Catholic churches. Like really high formal marble and everything. And I was like, ooh, this is not United Methodist. This is not what I was a part of. Mine was much more contemporary. So I went to a non-denominational church around the corner and started getting involved, and I played in the praise band and all that kind of stuff. And they had an evangelist come in from South America.
Oh my.
He was an evangelist to North America, to the United States of America. So this whole talking about Pentecostal.
Oh yeah.
He was coming here to save us,
right?
Because we lost our way.
Because we needed salvation.
And he had a white suit on. I remember white suit, and I remember if you need prayer, and I went up and I was trying to still work on forgiving my father and all this kind of stuff that I had built up in me. And I went and I stood at the altar, and he's coming by. It's the only thing I remember is he just the tone of his voice and his cologne. I smell. There's something about when you have those moments, your smell is off the charts.
Yeah.
There's certain senses that are on steroids.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like he was wearing cologne like an old woman on Sunday morning, right? It was just there was something about the combination, the smell, the touch. I was receptive. It wasn't, I didn't even know what everybody was. And I thought it was a bunch of bunk. I was like, I really was going up there going, that's just silly. No, they do that. That's fake. And that's what I thought. And man, when he just touched me, I just was like, there's something about, I think it's shown if you study religion, it's a sort of an ecstatic experience, whether it's in Islam, the Sufism, they spin, the whirling dervishes, they spin and they kind of get ecstatic. And I think that's, Pentecostalism is kind of that sort of branch within our Christian faith. It kind of, it's an ecstatic experience. Sometimes you have it when you're out just on your own and it's quiet, whether it's monastic experience in the Catholic Church or the Orthodox Church. There's every religion has sort of this ecstatic experiential type thing. Well, so I learned after that, I was like, man, I'm not poo-pooing this anymore. I'm I think some of it when I watch on TV, I think some of it is staged and fake. But for me in that moment with what I needed in that moment, being receptive to it, I just remember smell was heightened, sound was heightened. And it's he wasn't slapping you. He just touched.
Yeah.
And I was and the first thing I thought at first, it was this release. After you get a massage and you're just oh. And then I kind of thought about it and I was I'm so embarrassed because I actually fell down and I thought this was a bunch of bunk.
Well, to be clear, we don't have that in our community.
No, I wasn't saying you do. I was just telling you my experience.
I had a guy call me one time, a minister called me. He was a traveling evangelist and he said, Joseph, I'd really like to come to your church because I have a ministry of knocking people down.
That sounds great.
And I said, man, that's
going to be my ministry.
I said, that's too bad because I'm really looking more for somebody to pick them up,
Right. We talked about this morning, edification and encouragement.
Yes.
That's the whole world's every day out there knocking people down. Yes. I don't need you to come knock people down in my church.
Right.
I need you to build people.
We have an experience with God, but we have it, in a good, nice, beautiful way.
So tell everybody real quick about your wife, Rakisha, and your kids.
My wife, Rakisha, she is currently in seminary at Fuller Theological.
I know.
And, she is amazing.
She's getting smart too. Well, she's already smart.
She's the brains in our relationship.
See, in our meeting last week, she's like, well, let me tell you what I heard. And I was usually I'm yeah, stuff they teach you in seminary. I was that's pretty good.
She's amazing. She's an organizer. Mm-hmm. She's a very systems and structured kind of a person. And so we've been married for this year will be 24 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And we have 4 kids, Amaya, Atalia, Zion, and Judah. And just amazing kids. Amaya's in high school. Atalia's in middle school, Zion's in middle school, and Judah's in elementary school. And so we do this together. We love doing this together, and our kids are every bit a part of everything we do.
4 kids, I can't imagine.
It's pray for me.
We did a little lunch on Sunday and a bunch of new families, and there was a young couple there. They have 5 kids, all under 7.
Wow.
I didn't even know that was mathematically possible.
Yeah, that's tough.
See, 4 is wild, but 5 is just you've lost it.
Well, we were sitting there talking. We were sitting there talking, and there's this window, this courtyard, and all the kids were out in the courtyard playing. And we were talking, and I was like, "All right, some kid is just getting his rear end handed to us out there. Who's that kid on top of me?" Look at this. Oh, that's my oldest. And he went running out there. It's yeah, he's fixing to destroy that kid. You need to get out there, do something with those 5. They were brothers. They're just having fun.
That's us most of the time. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited about what God's doing, and I think. I don't know. I just love the idea of learning and what's going on. I mean, in a community like we live in Houston, where there's so many Hispanic families, and to think that there's so many unchurched Hispanic families, or disconnected and are looking for community. I mean, for you to have that many and us look at, I mean, I think that you could have a lot more people in worship on Sunday, and with the structure in place, connecting these people together in ways that are transforming lives and transforming the communities that live in around Houston. I think that's what's most exciting to me, is you've got this way of attracting them together, and now we've got this system that we can put underneath that says, how do we nurture and continue and build on this, right? To go forward in the future. And I think it's really exciting. I can't wait to see what's going to happen with that. Jeff, anything else?
Just want to plug your socials. And...
¿Tú necesitas practicar español? No?
No.
No? Okay.
You want to plug your social website, ways people can get involved or check you out?
You're on Instagram.
Yeah, you can go to iglesiageneraciones.org, and we are there. We're also on the Chapelwood website. You can look us up there. Our Instagram is Iglesia Generaciones as well. And so, and also our Facebook. I believe our Facebook is Generations Church. And so you can go there and catch us. Our live streams are there. Our services are there, as well as YouTube. Iglesia Generaciones, our YouTube account.
Perfect.
So
you can watch it in Espanol.
yes.
I'm like listen to it in Espanol, practice my ear.
Yeah, that's a good way to.
I know.
That's a good way to do it.
Although the vocabulary is very different, you know. Church vocabulary is very different from the news vocabulary. I'm really good at weather.
Yes.
Tormenta.
The news is very fast.
They go, man, gosh, there's one guy on there. He's got to be from Madrid or Barcelona, because he's got the whole Castellano, Barcelona. The one guy.
Barcelona.
Yeah. But the weather guys, it's like, I got 30 seconds to give you 500 pounds of information. And it's like, I cannot, dude, my ear just can't get it.
That's the way
I'm done.
That's the way they do it.
Más despacio.
Yeah, they run quick on the way they talk.
Well, thanks for coming by today, spending some time with us.
Thank you.
And we'll talk some more as we go into the future. I think it's going to be exciting. So if you like, subscribe. Press like, share with folks, especially share with folks if you're at Chapelwood, part of the Chapelwood family or worship community. Share with folks about what's going on within our church, Generaciones. And if you're not, share with other people who may be interested in learning more about Hispanic ministry and kind of what's going on the ground here in Houston, Texas. Well, we sign off by just saying our names. I'm John Stevens.
And I'm Joseph Rios.
And this is Pod Have Mercy.